Day 25 of Swim for Recovery. It's a beautiful Sunday today. Get to celebrate my son's birthday, and ear infection and allergies and stuff. It's just one of those days. So I'm not going to be talking a lot. We're just going to go ahead and get into Amy Moore's story. So enjoy Amy Moore's story. I'll talk a little bit more tomorrow about updates and things going on this week. But we're coming to an end of the month of September, and five more days. Pretty awesome, pretty crazy. It's gone this fast. So here we go at Swim for Recovery. Enjoy Amy Moore's story, and we'll pull it up here right now. And here we go. Take it away, Amy Moore. Boom. All right, here we are with another recovery story on swimforrecovery.com. Excited to hear Amy. She shares her story a lot of places around the country as well, and just a great recovery story. I mean, it's just fascinating. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. So Amy, welcome to the Recovery Story series.
Thank you, Rob. I'm glad to
Yeah.
be here today. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, you got it for sure. So first question is, and then we'll get into your story, obviously, is what do you consider your sobriety date?
My sobriety date is 11/18 of 1996.
Awesome. Just a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, just a
Yeah.
few.
Yeah, I love it. One day at a time and all those good things. And what was or were your drugs of choice?
Oh man, probably anything and everything I could get my hands on, but mostly alcohol and meth, crack.
Cornucopia of substances,
Yeah,
right? But
exactly. I was putting needles in my arms, doing whatever.
yeah, why not?
A little bit more of anything, More was my drug of choice.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And what I say to people too is we might make light of this a little bit in our stories. We're on the other side and it sucked when we were in the middle of it, right? So I know some people are like, well, you guys are kind of cavalier about this. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, 1996, it's been a few years, but it sucked back then. So we're going to step into that as well. But what state or city are you living in right now to kind of give people a location idea?
I live in Aurora, Colorado. I am a native of Colorado, like literally born in Denver and have been in Colorado my whole life.
You're one of those weird ones like my
Yeah.
wife. She's the same way. She's a native Coloradian. So
I know
um,
people are saying that they're natives when they've only been here for 10 years. That's
yeah,
not, no.
I am not. Sorry, I'm looking down because we have a new puppy and he's sitting here by my feet. So he's decided to eat part of my office, which is totally awesome. So, all right. So we'll talk more about what you're doing, like kind of where you are now and what you do for recovery. Great stuff. But back then it kind of wasn't so hot and awesome. So what was I kind of want to give people the idea of like the progression of kind of the disease, right? Of what you were struggling with. So where did it start and how did it move into getting sober?
I was 18 when I started drinking. And the reason that it took me so long to start drinking was because my dad was an alcoholic and died of cirrhosis of the liver when I was 14. So I said that I would never drink. And had a boyfriend at the time that was like, "Oh, it'll be fine, Amy. You can have 2 Jack Daniels Lynchburg lemonades, and I'll have 2, and we'll be fine. We'll stay home." And I slammed down my 2, took his second one, slammed that one down, and sent him back to the liquor store for more. So I would literally was a blackout drinker from the very first time that I drank, and I drank alcoholically every single time. Or why would you even drink? You know, like
Yeah.
going to rehab and them saying, "Hey, Amy, like if you ever tried any controlled drinking," I'm like, "Controlled drinking? What is that?" Why would anybody want to control it?
Yeah, and it's fascinating. Like, you've been in recovery for a while too. You hear these stories of it just kind of like had you from the beginning. And some people it's more like, I didn't really like it, but I started drinking years ago. But for you, it was just kind of like game on, let's go.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And how did it progress in so how old were you when you started? You said 18, and then you got sober when?
So I went into rehab at 21
Okay.
and stayed sober from the time I was 22.
Okay. So 3 years hardcore stuff. So let's talk about not a whole drunk log, but just kind of like some of the really tough things you went through in those 3 years that caused a lot of issues later. Not issues. We'll say issues, just struggles later on in life too to break free from. But what were some of the highlights, if you will, of the 3 years?
Well, I mean, I think that definitely progressing into harder substances, starting to use anything and everything, prescription medications, street drugs. I was living right next door to the biggest crack house in Colorado Springs and, smoking crack with those guys. And then I started putting needles in my arms and I did everything that I said I wouldn't do. And as a result of that, I ended up getting going to jail for lots of different things for stealing cars, fake IDs. Um, I lost custody of my daughter while I was in jail for the big arrest, and I was living in Colorado Springs. I was married to a guy in the military, and New Year's Day of 1995, right before that, my boyfriend at the time asked me if I would go to Maryland and meet his parents. And I was like, oh, I never wanted to meet the parents, never wanted anybody telling me that they loved me or getting too close. But I finally decided that I was going to go and meet the parents, and I got a fake ID. I was taking some of his prescription pills on the plane. Don't remember getting to Maryland. Vaguely remember him putting me on a plane to go back home. And luckily, I signed some papers for my husband, dropped my daughter off with him, and decided I was going to have the biggest and best party of all time. And so I filled my little hoopty party mobile up with all kinds of alcohol, and there were plenty of other party favors around and substances. And when I got back to my apartment, I told all my friends, we're going to go to Las Vegas and party with Metallica. I just got a credit card in the mail.
Oh my gosh.
So I put all of my friends in the car. We went down to the airport. We were all too drunk to go anywhere. So they sent us back home. And on the way back to my apartment, I got pulled over for doing Ace Ventura Pet Detective, putting my head out the window and driving.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Throwing Bacardi Breezer bottles into oncoming traffic and running red lights. And when the police pulled me over, they were like, Amy, what's going on? And I was like, I won $1 million. And I really did not win $1 million.
Yeah.
My friends were like, Amy, let us out. You're going to get us killed. And so when I got back to my apartment, I decided to put on my wedding dress, which this wedding dress was when I got married when I was 15 years old. And it's a big peach wedding gown. And I put my Doc Martens on and put my hair in a bun on top of my head and decided that I was going to drive to Las Vegas instead of, fly. And I saw red and blue lights in my rearview mirror. And I was like, my own personal escort
Oh,
to Las Vegas.
the life of delusion, right?
Exactly. And then I got onto the on-ramp to Bijou and I-25 and put my car into reverse and slammed into all the cop cars behind me. This is New Year's Day of 1995. They do not like that very much for a long time. I thought it was prime time, but it was really like 3:00 in the afternoon. And they arrested me and hogtied me and maced me, threw me in the backseat of the car. I later woke up in a hospital bed covered in charcoal with an officer standing at the door and my hand handcuffed to the bed and him saying, Amy, you're in big trouble. And I was like, for what? He's like, first degree assault on 2 police officers, eluding the police. And then when I got to jail, I found out that I broke one of the officers' noses because she came and asked me if I remembered her, which I didn't. And I spent the next 65 days in solitary confinement. I got into another fight in jail, lost custody of my daughter, which was, pretty much the darkest time of my life. And, I tried to kill myself several times in jail and then got out. And I wasn't thinking about how could I get my life back. I was in school to be a medical assistant, got kicked out of that. And, the reality was that I was just thinking about who could bring me a bottle of Bacardi 151 so I don't have to feel the way that I feel anymore. And I don't remember leaving in the parking lot of that jail that day.
Wow, what a depth that you went. I mean, what a place to come out of and to wake up in jail and all this stuff and just the chaos. And I mean, 65 days in solitary confinement. And how long were you actually in jail for that stint? Was it just 65 days and they let you out? Or
I think it was a little bit longer than 65 days, but 65 of the days that I was in there, I was in solitary because I got into a fight the day I got in there with a girl that owed me money for drugs and just got maced again. Like only fights I've ever been into. Those two fights.
Big time fights. I mean, there's collateral damage for actions, right? And then did you've been sober ever since then and just kind of into the world of recovery?
No, I got out of jail and I just continued down that path. Like I got worse and worse. Was hanging out with some people that were making meth and went down a really sticky spiral and started doing all kinds of stuff. Tried to rob the Texaco that I was working at, and just all kinds of stuff. Tried to steal one of those big dinosaurs.
Oh, no way.
Me and all my friends, yeah, got some trucks together and some chains, and
So
tried
are
to.
they pretty heavy? I've always wondered if they were pretty heavy.
They are so heavy. They're made out of concrete.
All right, good to know. Good to know.
So
Anyone out there for their senior
yeah,
prank, don't do that for sure.
the one on the way into Manitou is now bolted to the ground. I'm
All
sure
right.
that's me,
Yeah, good job. You made your stake there.
right? Sold
Stake.
everybody's antenna on their car for
All
crap.
right.
That's why
Well,
they don't put antennas on cars anymore.
I'm
That's my
glad
fault too.
I'm glad you're sober now. This seems like a good thing that you got sober. And what was let's step into the recovery world. Like what was the moment that you entered into recovery and never went back to the addiction part?
I think that the depression, the wanting to kill myself started becoming more prevalent every day. Felt like Groundhog's Day. It didn't feel like I could use or drink enough to make that go away. A lot of that stuff started to quit working for me, and I called my mom one day and just told her that I was desperate, that I wanted to kill myself more than anything. And she said, "Have you ever thought about drug and alcohol rehab?" And I was like, "I'm fine. I just need an antidepressant or something."
Yeah.
And she said, "If you go to rehab, I'll help you get your daughter back." Probably the only thing that she could have said to me. And so I called Salvation Army, went in there for 6 months, drank while I was in there because I had to try some controlled drinking, and it didn't work for me. The controlled drinking didn't work. And then when I got out of rehab, I was pregnant with my second daughter. And one of my friends said, "Amy, a glass of wine would be really good for the baby." And I was like, "Yeah, a glass of wine would be good for the baby. I heard that everywhere." And so that was the last time I drank. I went to a bar right next to an AA club that I had been going to, and drank myself into a blackout. And there was this major realization that I was going to lose another kid as a result of my drinking if I didn't stop. And so I started going to Vitality, and I met up with some of the old timer guys up there that really just protected me and put their arms around me. And my therapist from Salvation Army was the one who told me about these guys. And thank God for Jim and Greg and Larry and all the messages that Jim gave me, like, "Get in your helicopter, Amy, and look at the big picture. See, the big picture isn't so bad. And like, turn it over." And I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but I'm gonna sit by you until I do know. And today I know what those things mean. Like I was really against the whole God thing going into Salvation Army, being brought up in church with a lot of religious abuse, like didn't want any of that stuff. And so it was really hard for me to get past this whole like God thing when I came in, and it stopped me from wanting to do the steps. It stopped me from going to, a lot of meetings. And, finally I got to the point where I was so desperate in recovery that I was living on the crumbs of what the program had to offer. And so then I finally decided to do the steps, and absolutely changed my life. But, it didn't stop there because the steps weren't enough for me. I needed to go and do trauma therapy, and I needed to go and get a trauma therapist and do some of the deeper work that, yes, the steps uncovered some of those layers, but the trauma therapy is what ultimately saved my life and later recovery.
Man, outside help is so essential for people that need it. There's no shame in that. There's nothing. It's like I think everybody should have a therapist and a counselor or someone that's good at what they do, right? That really can help you get to the roots of those. And so now, I mean, we're how many years are we past the sobriety time? We're
25.
yeah. So we're a decade, couple of decades plus, right? In recovery. So what do you do today to maintain your kind of spiritual conditioning and your foundation?
Well, I truly believe that the longer that you stay sober, that the more you have to do, not the less that you have to do for your recovery. Because I believe that I'm further away from the remembrance of that last drink. And so I need to be reminded by doing more, by being involved more. I sponsor a lot of people, and do a lot for my recovery. So I speak at conferences and do different things for, like I go back to Salvation Army where I was in rehab and take meetings into that place, and I was in the prison for 9 years and hoping that they open that back up so that I can go back in there and help out and just be wherever is needed for me to be in order for me to continue that growth. And I do some outside meditation with a gal that I met in Australia and, constantly searching. Went to Nepal a few years ago, kind of on this like spiritual journey to find different things that are going to work for my recovery because I still am not to that place where I can buy into the whole religious God thing. Although I'm much closer to God, but it's still a struggle for me. There's a lot of things that happen in church. Like my youth pastor definitely contributed to that view. He sexually abused me, a priest, like all of these things. So it's hard for me to get past the religious and human part to actually get to God. And my sponsor always says, why do you have to go all the way around the whole circle? Why can't you just go to God? You have to go here, ding, 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 instead of like taking the road straight to God. And it's kind of convoluted and it's rounded by a bunch of trauma. This is really, where that is. But much better than it ever was. I feel like I'm very spiritual. I pray on a daily basis and I connect other people to their higher power and it's amazing. So,
Yeah. Yeah, well, congrats on the recovery and just the success of breaking free from them. I mean, like I said, it was a long time ago, and you're doing the things you need to do today to kind of keep that forefront for you. So, thanks for sharing your story on swimforrecovery.com. I know your story will touch people in certain ways, and like you said, there's other stories that will touch people in different ways, which is why we're doing this kind of collection of stories, right? Because someone's going to say, "Oh, I totally connect to her," or "I totally connect to this guy," or whatever it is. So I know a lot of people are going to connect to you on a bunch of different levels. So thanks a bunch, Amy from Colorado, and look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you.
thank you, Rob.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Amy, for sharing your story with us today. It's been a good day so far. So, hey, y'all, keep up the great work in your own recovery. If you want to watch all the stories or make a donation to the campaign, feel free to go to swimforrecovery.com and we'll catch you tomorrow.